Hello, and welcome to our team's Project 3 demonstration. The work you're about to see is the result of countless hours of work by my team, myself, Kerry Wilson, Alex Birch, and Praveen Amatya. The technology stack we are using is Java 8 with Spring, Hibernate, Angular 2, and PrimeNG. So let's start by digging into the project structure. We have a Maven build system. We're using Maven. We have three modules in this project. First is the domain. The domain module basically contains the model objects, which are simply POJs marked up with JPA annotations. We're also using Lombok throughout our project, which is a very nice code generating tool. Makes it really nice to work with, especially these data objects where we don't have to put a bunch of getters and setters just junking up our view. The next object that is in the domain module are our repo objects. We are using Spring JPA repositories here, which does a lot of the heavy lifting of accessing databases through JPA. We have a few that have some queries in them, and it's really nice because all you have to do is define a method here, annotate it with a query, and you can even put in parameters. Like here, we put in username, which is going to stick the username up in there. So the next portion of our project is the engine. So in the engine, the main entry point to the engine is the Gurobi caller. So the Gurobi caller is going to be responsible for it. It receives a program, which is the way that it's going to access our domain objects. And what it'll do is it'll come down here, and we've built out all of our constraints as objects, and we can kind of mix and match and plug them in how we want to. And we also have an objective function we can set, so we can add multiple constraints and then just set an objective and tell it to optimize. So one interesting thing as we dive into one of these constraints, we have a foundation course constraint. So you see we have a constraint interface, which basically contains this apply method. So for this foundational course restraint, we're going to go through and we're going to make sure that the students have taken the necessary foundational courses before they can take anything else. So now onto the UI. Our UI, as far as the Java goes, consists of API controllers, which are going to be these simple objects that are marked up with Spring annotations, request mappings. And this makes it really nice to easily create web APIs. And we have response objects, which we're going to translate our domain objects into response objects. We really didn't want to do this, but we ran into a lot of problems marshalling our data since there are a lot of links going everywhere. And when the JSON marshaller is trying to output JSON, it gets a lot of Stack Overflow exceptions as it traverses through the object graph. So the UI server project also contains our Angular app, our Angular 2. We use npm to manage our Angular 2 dependencies, and we're actually using TypeScript for this part of the app. As you can see, we have an admin section and a student section and services and some widgets. So the student section contains all the little student views, and the admin contains the admin views. Services is where we're going to reach out and grab stuff from API endpoints. So let's look at how we actually build this thing. It's pretty simple. You can just run maven clean install to build, and that'll go through all the modules and do all the compilations. However, you guys don't need to be doing that if you don't want to, because we are going to give you in the root of the directory a jar that you can just run, as well as the source that you can build. So let's go out here and let's run this jar. And this will fire up the app and using an in-memory database as to persist. Okay, let's jump over here, and now what we're looking at is the student login view. where a student's going to come in to log in to modify their preferences. We have a home page here that's pretty empty. We could put widgets and dashboard-like stuff, alerts or whatnot, but we haven't implemented anything there. So as you can see, we have a preference editor for a student to modify their preferences. If they wanted to get rid of software development process, they would just click that. And let's say they want to take an awesome course called Software Architecture and Design. They could just update it here. And they can also view a history of their recommendations. We have previous and next buttons so they can browse through the history of them. This basically shows the course, the title, the demand, the capacity, which is the demand is the number of students who have prioritized this course. Capacity is the size of the course. The priority is obviously what priority the student has placed it. And recommended is whether or not it was recommended. We also implemented specializations. A student can view through their specializations here. Each one of these little subsections represents a requirement. So if we look at core algorithms, they need to take one of these, and there is only one. They can take two of these and then three of these electives. And if they want to change their specialization, they can just hit their select button here, and you see the specialization changes. Let's bounce over to the admin section. Here's the admin section. We also have a dashboard here with nothing too substantial implemented yet. So the preference editor and the recommendation browser are both custom widgets we use. So you can stick them in any page, and as long as you give them a student, then they'll work for you. So we are going to select a student, and you can see they get the same preference editor. This guy can come in here and update it. Over here in recommendations, you see a similar thing. You get the same recommendation browser that we got when we were on the other side. So this is really neat because we can change this up and not have to worry about changing in a bunch of places, just in one place. The student search is also implemented as a custom widget, and on the course page, an admin can modify courses, and you may recognize this. This is another widget that we have that appears in the preference editor. So an admin can select a course and update the class size and view a history of the demand. So as you can see, the demand for this course has gone up. We can just click through, and that's really nice way to update their class size. So that is a nice brief overview of our application running. I hope you enjoyed it.